right, welcome back, Joe, to this week's edition of the three healthcare headlines you need to know from Tallahassee. It's been a long week, a great week. We had the opportunity to get together with several of our board members, actually almost all the board members from the Florida Society of Rheumatology, over the weekend up in St. Augustine for a strategic planning retreat. It's a great opportunity to kind of level set on a number of the initiatives for that organization, but a lot of bleed over to the other organizations we represent as well, too. Obviously, we have shared initiatives and direction that we need to represent all of our physicians throughout the state. But it was great to reconnect with you, with our physician leadership team. So looking forward to putting this podcast to record here so we can give an update to everybody else that's out there listening.
And I am Joe Daraskovich. Like I do each week, I introduce myself. I work alongside Frazier at several medical societies and associations in Florida. And yeah, I'm happy that we got to go to St. Augustine this weekend. It's one of my favorite towns in Florida, and me living in Jacksonville, it's one of those things where it's nice to go somewhere and feel like you're in a new hotel and you're on vacation, and then you go back to town and I've only used a quarter tank of gas for the entire trip. So that was nice. And we had some great dinners. We had some great, obviously the board meeting went well, and just good to see all the people in person. So for those other societies, we'll see everybody else before long. But for those rheumatologists, it was great to see everybody. So we've got a lot to cover this week. You ready to jump in? Any opening thoughts before we start touching on the headlines?
Just as we've been covering the last several weeks, we're getting closer and closer to the projected finish line here. So we've got a few things to highlight this week and get to talk about the judiciary again, which we don't get to do very often. A lot of our commentary is based on the legislative branch, if you will, here in the state of Florida. But we had a court ruling that came out this week, which we're going to highlight as well, too. So looking forward to this episode.
It's gonna be a good one. And again, we have to thank our special guest from last episode, Tony Large. We got to see her over the weekend in Tallahassee. She was able, or in St. Augustine, she was able to give everybody updates in person there as well. But we got a comment over on our video last week that they thought that it was very insightful. So thank you again to Tony Large, and maybe toward the end of the session we'll have another special guest at some point. But for now, everybody's got Joe and Frazier again, and we're gonna hit the three headlines like we always do. So let's get going. First headline. First, DCA dispenses trouble, ruling to impact access to medications for injured workers. It's something we deal with a lot, the injured workers. What's the latest, Frazier?
Yeah, and so usually these legal battles are a little bit complex. So we'll try to kind of summarize where we are with this process. It's actually been a years-long battle over dispensing medications within the workers' comp system. So to level set for a minute, obviously the workers' comp system is the grand bargain, as Senator Danny Burgess likes to talk about. Injured workers are giving up their rights to sue in return for getting rapid access to quality care through their employers, the insurance companies. The way the system in Florida is set up is insurance companies, as they assume that responsibility, they have total control to direct and steer their patients to physicians that they entrust to render care. So they have pretty broad steering capabilities. However, one thing the statutes clearly state is that those injured workers do not give up their freedom to choose their pharmacy and pharmacist. And basically, that's what the issue is. We have physicians that register with the state, become licensed dispensing practitioners, and the argument has been over whether this freedom to choose for patients, their pharmacy and pharmacist, where they get their prescription drugs, would also extend to dispensing practitioners. So we've gone back and forth with rulings from the Department of Financial Services, which hosts the Division of Workers' Comp. The department put out a rule several years ago that clearly stated that the intent of the legislature is that freedom to choose where you get your prescriptions would extend both from pharmacy pharmacists to dispensing practitioners, because we were basically licensed. We were following the processes of a pharmacy, and we could dispense medications to them. So we supported that ruling from the department several years ago. It was challenged by the employers and the workers' comp insurance industry. Obviously, they like to have that control over where the patient fills their scripts. There was some concerns around cost, and if dispensing practitioners do cost more. That was actually discussed in a legislative session a number of years ago, and we believe it was settled because we put a fee schedule in the statutes that everybody agreed to at that time. So we've dealt with the cost issue. Now it's really the insurers wanting to steer their patients away from dispensing practitioners. There is still some concern about cost. I think the insurers don't think that the fee schedule is strict enough, and that's why they're challenging this ruling from the department. So anyway, the First District Court of Appeals just last week came out and said, in their opinion, that freedom to choose your pharmacy does not extend to dispensing practitioners. So it doesn't end dispensing practitioners and your ability to dispense medications to injured workers. It just means that the insurers are now more emboldened to steer patients away and say, no, you can't dispense to your patient. We're going to send them to the pharmacy that we choose. However, again, that runs right into the face of the patient has the right to choose their pharmacy and pharmacist. So we need some clarity from the courts. We still believe the intent of the statute was that patients have that right to choose where to get their drugs, and we're standing in the shoes of a pharmacy or pharmacist when we dispense as the authorized treating physician for that injured worker. So we are working with a coalition to figure out our next steps, whether it is appealing that decision from the First District Court of Appeals or seeking legislative clarity that would clearly add dispensing practitioners to that definition of freedom to choose. So again, we think the intent was clear. We all want injured workers to move through the system quickly. We don't want their access to medications to be delayed if we can give them medications at the point of care. Obviously, we know the patient's got it. They're leaving our office. They've got their medications. We can expedite getting them on therapy right away. So we think that's part of the grand bargain. So we'll kind of see. Obviously, the court disagreed and is seeking clearer language from the legislature. So I think, ultimately ends up back in the legislative realm, trying to fix it. We'll see if there's additional opportunities for us to access the courts. But for to be totally clear to the audience, that there's been some rumors that this has ended dispensing. It hasn't ended dispensing. What it did is impact the patient's ability to choose. So you can't just dispense blindly. You're going to have to work with your insurers to say, hey, we feel this is in the patient's best interest to get medications before they leave the office. Can you authorize us to do that? So it's going to take more legwork on the front end, but by no means does it end dispensing. It just means you're going to have to work with your insurance companies to make sure they're comfortable with you doing that.
So, Fraser, first of all, great background on all of that. We've had comments in the past where, sometimes we're just talking the tip of the iceberg, but that was good history, good to lead up to what happened now, but also a good reminder that we're always kind of working on things in Tallahassee, and the insurance companies are popping up in all these different conversations that we're having. So, if you're new to organized medicine and advocacy in general, advocating on behalf of physicians and patients, it's nothing new to have all these different battles, but this is how kind of the sausage is made, where there's back and forth, courts get involved and things like that, and then sometimes you get an outcome, and then that outcome's not the final outcome, and there's more fighting to do. So I just want to say thank you for giving that background, and then also the reminder that organized medicine is advocating for the patients and the doctors, and we're going up against the big boys in the insurance companies. So, any thoughts before we move on?
Just to highlight, this is limited just to workers' comp currently. Obviously, commercial payers also work with dispensing practitioners as well. So this ruling from the court really was specific to the workers' comp statutes, not broader than that. But there could be long-term ramifications, right, on dispensing practitioners. And this court now discussing the fact that we don't stand in the shoes of pharmacies, if you will. So there are broader implications. In the time being, this is a very narrow decision related to workers' comp. We're going to keep battling it. We think it's the right thing to do on behalf of our injured workers. They've given up enough of their rights when they do go into the comp system, that we want to make sure that they get access to medications timely. So we'll keep up the good fight and look forward to giving everybody an update of where we are in the process.
Yeah, and I also want to say, any listeners out there, we covered a lot just in that one first headline. And if something didn't exactly make sense, or you want a little bit more on the background, leave us a comment below, and we'll try to clear things up. But that's what's going on. That's the history of everything. That's where we are now, and the future. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll update everybody. But feel free to leave us a question if you have any concerns about that specific topic. So, ready to move on, Fraser?
Do it.
All right, number two, challenge to buy and bill suppressed for now. Now that's something buy and bill. That's what we talked about over the weekend a little bit. So what's that suppression?
Yeah, some more pharmacy discussion here, which honestly, candidly, is a little bit outside of my realm. We don't the way prescription drugs are delivered is such a complex system. And I think that's been the problem of the federal and state regulators trying to reel in the impact of pharmacy benefit managers and the whole web of why we pay more for medications here in the US and other countries. I mean, this is a detailed, complex arena. So anyway, we teased it last week that there was a bill that came out that potentially would have impacted buy and bill processes. The good news is this week we are able to amend that bill to take out the troublesome language that would have presented a challenge for buy and bill for all those physicians that do it, whether you're an oncologist or rheumatologist or those also that buy medications, deliver them to their patients in their office or infusion center. So the key on this was they tried to redefine a covered prescription drug to only be a pharmacy benefit. Currently in the statutes, it's both could be paid as a pharmacy benefit or a medical benefit. By eliminating medical benefit, they meant that then every covered prescription drug could only be paid for out of the pharmacy benefit of a patient's coverage. That was the issue because buy and bill processes now are mostly paid out as a medical benefit. So it's a huge deal. But we are extremely pleased that we were able to do a little bit of education on the ramifications of that. And again, it's a complex arena, so legislators, usually sometimes don't appreciate all of the background or potential unintended consequences that could happen on language. So that's why we have great lobbyists up there to educate folks and say, no, this is if you tweak this language, this is the potential fallout. So that process unraveled last week, and we're pleased that we have made that change. So fingers crossed we'll get through session here. They'll adjourn and leave Tallahassee, and we won't have to worry about that covered prescription drug definition being changed. But again, kudos to the team up there for making sure that education took place, and I think we're in a good landing spot now.
That's another good point too, that we are in the back half of session and little hiccups like that where things, there's a speed bump in the road. If that speed bump were to happen in week one or week two, there's a lot of times that kind of iron things out and make sure that, things get back on track if it's at the track that you want it to be on. But when we're this late in session, something like that happens, there's a smaller chance that it would be able to kind of come back together and make it to the finish line. So sometimes those speed bumps can be good things if it's something that you oppose, right, Fraser?
Yeah, and there's an advocate behind any language that's floating out there, so that language probably will reemerge, whether it's this session or next. It's just a reminder that we need to stay vigilant. There's a reason why that language was proposed. We're trying to find out where that's coming from and make sure we can address any of those concerns with those advocates on the front end, so it doesn't end up being bad language that we have to live with moving forward.
That's another reminder of the process. It's something happens in week 7 of 2026, and it's a reminder, next year, years after that that things take a while to happen, and when things stick, sometimes they're in there, and it's hard to get them out. So we'll keep an eye on that one, Fraser, as the session kind of gets toward the tail end here. You ready for the third headline?
Since it's not pharmacy related, yes, let's do it. We've had
Okay.
enough of that.
Yeah, you're right. But hey, and that's a thing that everybody needs to realize. We're breaking things down that are happening, and we pick 3 kind of important things each week, and we're not cherry picking. We're not saying like, hey, this is something we know we're going to cover it. This is something that's important, so we're going to cover it. So I know that's not our normal wheelhouse, but we try to make it our wheelhouse. And it's a good reminder too that those lawmakers over there, they're not experts by any means too on every single thing. They're talking about agriculture, they're talking about business. Everything over there is covering everything that happens in Florida, and in this little healthcare arena, obviously it's some confusing stuff is going on over there. So if it's confusing to us and it's confusing to doctors and patients, it's just as confusing to those legislators as well. So that's why it's so important to have the lobbyist and testimony for doctors and patients to over there to talk about what's going on in their offices and kind of seeing those light bulbs go off as the bills kind of come to reality. So all right, this last one I promise. I think we're ready to talk about something other than pharmacy. So headline number 3: Smoke signals bill to protect practitioners from surgical smoke moves forward. That does seem like something that we talk about a little more regularly. So what are we doing here, Fraser?
We have talked about this in the past. It's been like 3 or 4 years that this bill has been filed. It seems to have momentum this year. So, as we've talked about, there seems to be very few bills moving all the way through the process. So, we kind of focus on those that seem to have some increased momentum, and this bill is certainly one of them. Um, there's a number of practitioners, physicians, nurses, is predominantly coming from the nursing community, wanting to make sure that surgical suites have appropriate equipment to extract smoke that's created during the process of the surgical procedure. Most of your large institutions, hospitals that do significant amount of surgeries have equipment that will remove that smoke so it's not up in your face as you're all in there trying to perform the surgical procedure. A lot of the other smaller ambulatory surgery centers may not have the same level of equipment. So this is an effort to protect practitioners to make sure there's no long-term consequences from breathing in all that smoke when you're doing procedures day in and day out. So the bill does have some momentum. Obviously, there'll be some cost for facilities to make sure they comply if it does come through. But obviously, we want our practitioners to be safe out there. I don't think we have any major concerns with it at this point, other than the cost impact. But certainly that is a trade-off that the legislature may ask us to accept here moving forward. But seems like it's got a good chance of passing this year, so we wanted to highlight it.
Yeah, that's one of those details that some of these things you kind of get lost in, what's going on, but it's an easy one to remember. You talk about the surgical smoke, and it's something that the I feel like the legislators like to ask about it and ask, the details of how it works and everything, and just something that kind of sticks in our minds because we do seem to talk about it every now and then where it bubbles up to the surface or the smokes up to the surface, however you kind of want to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, Jill. Well done. Well played.
Yeah. So yeah, is that it? Is that all we're going to cover? Are you ready to kind of put a bow on this episode, or any last thoughts, Fraser?
Last thoughts, looking forward to your musical recommendation. You have given me a movie recommendation as well this week. World's Greatest Lover by Gene Wilder. Looking forward to looking that up and checking it out. Um,
Yeah,
but but we're not going to add that to your plate. Movie recommendations for the audience. Let's focus on music and see what you got this week.
but that is a good, funny movie, and it's one of those. I think it was from the '70s, but it looks back at like the golden era of film, and it's an adult movie, but it's probably PG-13. It's just slapstick, good humor. So we won't recommend that to everybody, but I hope you watch it, Fraser. My
Especially
recommendation.
especially the kids in the audience. I know we have a big under 18 population that tunes into our podcast every week. So
Right. I mean, maybe some kids are in the back of the car listening as the doctors are going to work and everything. But anyway, so my musical selection this week, I'll harken back to St. Augustine a little bit. After the first welcome dinner, a few of us went out to a brewery. You were included. We went to a brewery, and they were playing really loud music. And Marissa was with us, but we had a sitter. She had to go back to the hotel to relieve the sitter, and then kind of everybody trickled out of there. And then I was the only one left. I mean, me and then a whole bunch of other, random people. And it started coming out that I said, have you heard of this band? And they hadn't heard of that band. And you ever heard of this? And so I started rolling out all the different bands that I like, and they had heard of none of them. But then they started listening to them. Took the aux cord and started listening to the bands that I was suggesting. And one of them is coming to Jacksonville this week. So if Marissa can, let me out of the house on a Thursday night, my plan is to go see them. And I've talked about this band before. Pigeons Playing Ping Pong. And the song I'm gonna, because this was a hit for all the people at the bar that on Saturday night, "Melting Lights." So the song's "Melting Lights" by Pigeons Playing Ping Pong. They're coming to Jacksonville this Thursday, and if I get the chance to get out of the house on a weeknight, on a school night, I think I might go get to see some live music this week, and it's one of my favorite bands, Pigeons Playing Ping Pong.
to put in a good word for you with Marissa potentially. And now I'm glad to hear that you DJ'd. So if this podcast thing doesn't work out for us, we've got a backup plan.
Yeah, yeah, and it was a hit at a conference recently too, where I played DJ, and I wasn't the one picking all the songs when I was DJ at the conference recently. It was the doctors were coming up and making their song choices known, but yeah, this was fun. It was like everybody looked at me weird when I brought up the band names, and then we would play the song, and they said, this is a good band. So it's the old phrase, like never judge a book by its cover, because the band might be called Pigeons Playing Ping Pong, but they're really good, and they're worth a listen. So this week, Melting Lights, Pigeons Playing Ping Pong. Next week we might have a little twist on the musical selection next week. So that's my tease. That's my tease for next week, Fraser.
And we've got 2 weeks left of session here, so we'll be doing a recap of this week, and they're slated to leave town a week from Friday. So we'll see if they actually get the budget done and leave on time. So this was a lot of fun again today, Joe. Looking forward to doing it again next week, and I hope you get out to see your show this week.
I hope so too. And yeah, if I see everybody out there, it'd be great to bump into a doctor while I'm there at Pigeons playing ping pong. So we'll see you next week, Frazier. And yeah, for now, that was another good episode.